We're really proud of around here is helping to grab 17 bad guys off the FBI's 10 most wanted list. And we start out tonight looking for a new member of that notorious group. His name's Jose Luis Saenz, a guy the feds peg as a trigger-happy killer. He'd been flying under the radar a while before a frightened friend made his shocking confession to the cops. If you know where Jose Luis Saenz is, be careful, but call our hotline at 1-800-CRIME-TV. Ruthless. You hear that word over and over when it comes to describing Saenz. That's why the FBI put this out-of-control accused killer on their 10 most wanted list. That's why we gotta shut him down tonight.
Up next, a brutal stabbing murder takes a veteran detective inside a world he never knew existed.
Women like me and Paulina sometimes feel like we don't have a choice.
And later, it was 7 violent minutes of murder. But tonight, you'll see how time ran out on the one fugitive who got away.
Now, breaking news on 2 fugitives we need to bring in tonight. In Massachusetts, police are on the hunt for Manson Brown. In 2005, a jury convicted Brown for a home invasion robbery. While Brown served time in this minimum security facility, officials took his DNA as required by law. Authorities quickly got a hit. Brown's DNA matched DNA found at the scene of a violent rape 13 years earlier. When Brown got wind of this, authorities say he broke out. He's been on the run for the past 2 weeks and could be anywhere. Just this week, the U.S. Marshals Service added Paul Marriage to their 15 most wanted list. We've been on the hunt for Marriage since Thanksgiving Day, when he allegedly gunned down 4 family members, one of whom was his 6-year-old cousin. Cops say Marriage cleaned out his bank account and purchased several guns before the shooting. They believe this was a premeditated attack. We won't stop looking for Marriage until he's caught, but so far he's remained elusive. If you've seen Paul Marriage or Manson Brown, call us tonight at 1-800-CRIME-TV and log on to amw.com for more details on both of these dangerous fugitives. When you've been a cop for 30 years, you start to think you've seen it all, and maybe you have. But Tom Morris caught up with one 30-year vet in L.A. who was introduced to a side of society he barely knew while puzzling over a very brutal and bloody murder.
It was August 28th of this year when Los Angeles Police Lieutenant Wes Burmester got the call. A brutal murder had just been committed in a Hollywood apartment. When he arrived, he found himself in a scene straight out of a horror film. 24-year-old Paulina Ibarra was dead, stabbed more than a dozen times.
There was blood smeared on the walls and also pools of blood on the floor at various locations indicating a struggle. And what we'll do if there's no suspect, once the detectives arrive at the scene, we'll work backwards.
Which meant the lieutenant had to find out everything he could about Paulina. And he quickly learned Paulina led a complicated life.
Paulina was a transgender woman. Paulina had the attributes of a female, but also the physical attributes of a male.
Burmester thought that detail alone could be key. So he began to explore a sexual subculture that he'd only heard about until now. He discovered Paulina was actually born a boy named Jose and nicknamed Pepe.
Pepe was very determined to become a woman because he felt he was supposed to be born a woman.
I said, well, I'm with you, whatever you need. if that's the way you feel, you can be whatever you want.
And Paulina did just that when she moved from Bakersfield to L.A.
It's like a dream sometimes to be in Hollywood. She found a lot of friends that were just like her, you know. They wanted to be themselves, and maybe they weren't comfortable where they were before.
The lieutenant learned that Paulina's bright lights, Tinseltown dreams had ultimately led her into one of Hollywood's darker sides.
Several of her friends approached us, and they told us that they believed Ms. Ibarra did engage in prostitution on Santa Monica Boulevard.
It's very seldom that a transgender can go into a place and get a job and given the opportunity to work 9 to 5. Women like me and Paulina sometimes feel like we don't have a choice. I don't think it's something that people feel proud of. Like, my God, I'm a sex worker, you know, since I was a child, this is what I wanted to do. I think that anybody that has to resort to selling their bodies to just make it day by day has to have some sorrow.
Maria hasn't worked the streets in years. She's put it in the past, but Paulina would never be given that same chance.
How could you not be sympathetic for murdered by somebody that obviously was fueled by hate and ignorance, stabbed her over and over and over again?
Members of the transgender community seem to endure quite a bit of being stigmatized. They are judged harshly by society as a whole. That's understood as we're going through our investigation.
As Burmester tracked down leads, his big break came from the last place he expected, LA's tight-lipped street culture, where there's usually a wall of silence between the cops and the transgender sex workers.
Her friends, about 3 or 4 of them, just walked up to us. They saw that we were officers, and they said, "We think we may know who was involved in this."
The name they gave him was Jesus Catalan. Paulina's friends knew Catalan because he was known on the streets for his transgender fetish. And they didn't just give cops a name. They handed over physical evidence to back up their suspicions. Bloody clothing, they said, belonged to Jesus Catalan.
Catalan had told them he'd been jumped on the street that night. But when Paulina's friends found out Paulina had been murdered, they didn't buy Catalan's story and went to the cops. DNA tests soon confirmed it was, in fact, Paulina's blood on Catalan's clothes. But by then, Catalan was gone and is now the prime suspect in Paulina's fatal stabbing.
The LAPD owes a great deal of gratitude to the transgender community. Had they not stepped in, this would be a whodunit. Everybody, you know, has a right to be free from harm, including Paulina Ibarra, including transgender folks.
When I hear Jesus' name, I just have anger of how he can take that from us, how he just took Paulina from us.
You know, it's easy to judge, but that's not what we do here. We get justice. And you can't tell me that anybody deserves the horrible, violent death Paulina suffered. Now, you saw how her family and friends loved her and cared for her. So let's get them and Paulina some justice by helping cops catch up with Catalan. Jesus Catalan has ties to Puerto Rico, but cops think he's still in L.A., maybe hiding around Hollywood. If you know where Jesus Catalan is tonight, you gotta step up and make that call. 1-800-CRIME-TV.
Coming up,
Here's Johnny!
a cult preacher out of control and the man who kept the cult under control.
Some of them were beaten so badly they were afraid they were going to die.
Please!
Now, we've all heard about these very strict religious cults where people live in communes run by sketchy, charismatic preachers. Tony Alamo's Christian Ministries is one notorious example. Well, tonight, Alamo's rotting in prison for disgusting deeds he did in the name of the Lord. And the great thing about his downfall is that it came straight from the scriptures. A child shall lead them.
have to get out of here. Please help me. I can't take this anymore.
Hey! What are you doing?
I'm a friend of your sister. Get in!
Go, 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 go! Go! He's gonna drive you to hell!
After making a harrowing escape, a teenager Will call David made his way to local authorities in Fort Smith, Arkansas. It was October 15, 2008. Detective Chris Deason had heard her share of stories over the years, but nothing quite like this.
And if we did anything he didn't like, he would say, "Oh, John, take care of you," and he would. And nobody was safe from John. Nobody, not me, not my dad, nobody at the compound. It was like John was his enforcer. Every time he would just...
David, slow down. This John was whose enforcer?
Pastor Tony Alamos.
Tony Alamo. It was a name Detective Deason was familiar with. Cult leader, ex-con, televangelist, Alamo had made a name for himself with his compound of devoted followers in Fort Smith. But it was a journey that began 30 years earlier in Hollywood, California. With his wife, Susan, Alamo recruited kids off the street to join his ministry.
They would pass out these little gospel pamphlets, and they would say, "Repent or perish, Jesus Christ is coming back to earth again, and if you don't repent or perish, you're gonna burn in hell."
Those powerful words struck a chord with some people in those confusing times. Quickly, Tony and Susan Alamo built a following, and according to former members, it was Susan who was the real leader.
Tony was kind of like her little puppy dog. She called all the shots, and he did what she told him to do.
Jesus is the only way.
That included singing. The two bought TV time in Los Angeles and were soon spreading their gospel all over the airwaves. By the early 80s, Susan and Tony Alamo had thousands of followers in churches across the country. They were on their way to building a religious empire. But in 1981, Susan was diagnosed with breast cancer. Within months, she was dead. Without Susan around, a dark side of Alamo began to emerge.
Jesus said that greater things than he did would we do in the last days, just before he comes back to earth again. I really believe, without a doubt, that Susie is going to be raised from the dead.
Let the spirit of Susan will her back to life.
And Alamo did everything in his power to make that happen.
Lord, hear our prayer.
He had his followers pray around her 24 hours a day, insisting that if they did, she would be resurrected.
Lord, hear our prayer. Let the spirit of Susan will her back to life. May she walk with the living.
We prayed day and night for her to rise from the dead, and she didn't.
When those days and nights turned into weeks and months, and Susan's body decayed into bones, Alamo turned against his followers.
You failed me. Your spirit obviously isn't strong enough. Go.
Tony blamed the church. Because of us, the Lord wasn't gonna bring her back.
Resigned he'd never have the body and soul of his wife, Alamo told followers Susan would return to him in the body of a younger woman. Prophetic words that eventually led him down a sick path of no return.
And it is the marriage between a man and a woman. It is the bond of marriage. And in the Bible, the age of consent for marriage is puberty.
Listen to the real Tony Alamo as he preaches from a radio broadcast.
Women should be able to be married at 13, 14, 15 years old. And in some cases, if they've menstruated already, 12 years old.
They thought of him as their pastor, this prophet. Everything he said, of course, came from God because they believed God was actually talking to him.
But even God couldn't protect Alamo from the IRS, which closed in on him in 1992 for back taxes. U.S. Marshals seized his compound in Arkansas, but not Alamo. He went on the run for 2 years. He was eventually apprehended and sentenced to 6 years in federal prison for income tax evasion.
I preach the gospel, that's love. The Bible says that's love.
When Alamo was released in 1998, he picked up right where he left off.
Devil in this world that says what God says is not right. They are trying to make you think that God is dead, that this is all one big fable.
He began fulfilling his sick spiritual justification, taking young girls to be his wives.
Don't cry. We're married now. It's okay. It's in the Bible. If you dare resist me, I will send you to John Colbeck.
John Colbeck was Alamo's right-hand man and enforcer, and the reason for his rise in the church was sickening. According to ex-members, Colbeck let his own daughter go live with Alamo when she was only 6 years old.
Lord! Amen!
He became a bigwig, as they called him, because John Colbeck was like Tony's man, because after all, he gave up his daughter. Wherever Tony went, John Colbeck was right there with him.
We all knew about John Colbeck, and Pastor Alamo made sure everyone knew what John could do to us.
Why were you digging tunnels?
I wasn't. I was just playing in the dirt.
Oh, you were digging tunnels on the property.
No, I wasn't.
You need a visit with the Board of Education. Here's Johnny!
No! No! Please, stop! No, please! No, please, stop! Stop! Ah, no! Ah!
There was true fear of Colbeck because of the violence of the beatings. Some of them were beaten so badly, they were afraid they were going to die.
You think I like doing this? No! No! I love doing this.
He did this for years.
None of the adults stood up to him?
If they did, they'd get beat too. Or Pastor Alamo would have them beaten for other reasons. Like my dad.
The kitchen sink is leaking again.
But I fixed it.
You know what I think? I think you're trying to sabotage this ministry. Have you made a deal with a plumbing company to rob us?
No, Pastor, no.
Why don't I believe you? You know the drill. David! You must bear witness and no tears.
You weren't allowed to cry? Or Alamo would say we were sympathizing with the devil and we'd be next. And I was next. But for a different reason. Pastor Alamo made us work reselling food that was donated to the church. Instead of eating it, we'd resell it. And if it had expired, he would make us change the date on the cans and stuff. What date do we put on these now?
I don't know. Harry Potter.
What?
Yeah, add the glasses. You look just like him.
If I was Harry Potter, I'd cast a spell on you. I guess I shouldn't have said that.
You want to put a spell on me, boy?
But that wasn't even the worst beating. My first one was. When some kids teased me, I told one of them to drop dead, and the next thing I knew, my dad had pulled me out of our house.
You had parents reporting on children. You had children reporting on parents, spouses on spouses.
Dad, please, Dad! Dad, help! Please, help! Dad, help me! Ah! Dad!
My own father betrayed me. I knew I couldn't live there any longer. And then I got my lucky break. I was home alone, and the phone rang. Hello? It was my sister.
David's sister had left the church several years earlier. They lost touch until her one random phone call. Now David knew that this was his only chance.
Please help me. I can't take this anymore.
What are you doing? Go, go, go! Go! He's gonna drive you to hell!
You have to stop them before somebody gets killed.
David's statement helped authorities build their case against Alamo. These photos are from their raid on Alamo's compound in Fort Smith on November 18, 2008, a raid that resulted in 21 children being rescued and Alamo being arrested. Now, Alamo was sentenced to 175 years in prison for his sickening behavior with his young wives. And you know what? He deserves every year he got. But now we got to grab the guy accused of beating Alamo's followers into submission, John Colbeck. Colbeck's a big guy, 6'4", 280 pounds. Now, he may be traveling with his wife, and they could have 4 children with them who are mixed race, Caucasian and African American. They could be hiding out anywhere in the country.
Later tonight, cops say he escaped on 2 legs. But he couldn't outrun 4 of them. See how an accused killer gets a sharp taste of justice.
Everyone agreed Kyle Fleischman had a very bright future ahead of him until he went missing more than 2 years ago. Tonight, Kyle's wonderful family and many, many loving friends still have faith that they'll learn the truth behind his disappearance. Angeline Hartman traveled to Charlotte, North Carolina to meet some of the people who continue to miss Kyle every day.
This is also ground zero for one of Charlotte's biggest mysteries. This is where Kyle Fleischman.
Kyle has been missing for more than 2 years now. For investigators, it's like working one big puzzle with many pieces or clues. Tonight, we're laying out all those pieces for you.
On Thursday, November 8th, 2007, Kyle went to the Dane Cook comedy show at the Time Warner Cable Arena with friends. Then his group spent the rest of the night at the Buckhead Saloon, just 1 block away. This feet away at Fuel Pizza, where he went inside and bought a few slices. Investigators say Kyle stayed in the area, and at 3:28 he called a friend. Then at 3:30 he called his roommate. Neither picked up, and he didn't leave a message. Just like the investigators, Kyle's parents are mystified.
Keep doing all you can, don't give up, even though the not knowing is so very, very hard. Let's get the Fleischmans the answers they need to know about their beloved son, Kyle. If you can help, you've got to call 1-800-CRIME-TV. Now, here's one more missing person we need to look for. We created My Story to help people get the word out about their missing loved ones. The subject of tonight's My Story is a man who disappeared a little more than a year ago, and his sister is desperately trying to find any information about him tonight.
My name is Judy Transu, and my brother David Cook has been missing from the Amsterdam, Missouri area since November 19, 2008. He went to work at Kansas City Power and Light, and he left work that evening about 10:30 and came home, and the next morning he had a meeting scheduled with a couple of business partners, and he never showed up for that meeting. We need your help. I need your help. If you know anything about what happened to David, where he is, or who is involved, please call the America's Most Wanted hotline. We need that information.
Coming up next, 3 murders leave 3 families devastated.
We're sorry that an event that hurt somebody in our family caused someone in their family to die.
Tonight, see how their accused killer gets a sharp taste of justice.
Now, you may remember a few weeks back when I stood on a quiet neighborhood street in Berkeley, California, where a young man was gunned down in cold blood. 4 gangbangers were charged with that murder. 3 of the creeps were caught, but 1 was still on the run. I met with the mom and the cousin of their target, and I promised those women that they would get justice soon. And I'm very glad to tell you tonight that they did. The tragedy began back on May 16th, when C.J. Davis, a student on break from college, was heading to the corner store. 4 men from Oakland, including Raphael Campbell,
what's up, homie? Hey, that's a nice phone, boy.
spotted him and carried out their death sentence. More than likely, they were after someone other than CJ.
It's a terrible feeling. Painful. Just couldn't believe it that I wouldn't see my son no more. Never again. He just happened to be the wrong place at the wrong time. Mistaken identity. And they find out later on that, hey, that wasn't who I was looking for.
Campbell and the others sped off after the murder.
5-0, go!
But wouldn't get far before Berkeley officers were hot on their trail. Then, just minutes after the fatal shooting, two more men were dead. Floyd Ross was walking home from his mom's apartment, and Todd Perea was commuting home from his job as a video editor. What began as one murder just 7 minutes earlier had ended in 3 deaths.
It's a tragedy that 3 families are hurting from this. That 4 people decided that they were going to take somebody's life, and they took 2 other people's lives at the same time. And we're sorry that an event that hurt somebody in our family caused someone in their family to die. Get on the ground!
After Berkeley police arrested 3 of the suspects, we profiled the one who got away, Raphael Campbell.
I believe you saw the suspect.
You gave investigators some solid leads. And less than 2 weeks after our broadcast, U.S. Marshals tracked Campbell down to this apartment in Sacramento.
We could hear the announcements being made by the Marshal Service. They started making entry, banging on the door. At that point, I heard noise, a commotion on the patio, and then observed the suspect, Raphael Campbell, jump over the wall and just take off running through this field. At that point, I deployed my dog, and my other canine handler deployed his dog at the same time. We were going to wait to see who got him first. The canines can run so much faster than we can to chase guys. We knew there was pretty slim chance of him getting away, or absolutely no chance. He had 2 dogs on him, and at that point, he knew it was done. And we ordered the dogs to let go. We back up. And that's when the marshals came in and put handcuffs on him.
In the heartless dog-eat-dog world of Raphael Campbell, he didn't get the last bite.
It's a big relief to know that they caught him, that he's off the streets, and we don't have to, look behind our back. It was a blessing. You know, every bite that they got, hey, good. They could have bit him some more.
Now, I know firsthand, when you lose a loved one, there's really no such thing as closure. But I feel really good that the families of C.J. Davis, Todd Perea, and Floyd Ross at least got some justice, and that all 4 of the low-life cowards who are charged with their deaths are behind bars where they belong. Great work by the fugitive task force taking Campbell down.
Tonight, the manhunt is on for escaped inmate and accused rapist Manson Brown, John Colbeck, wanted for battery, and accused killers Jose Luis Saenz, Jesus Catalan, and Paul Marriage.
Next week, make sure you're right here to help us hunt down some criminals with secret lives. They come off like solid citizens. They're your neighbors, your coworkers, people you think you know. But we rip their masks off right here next week and show you some really bad guys who you'd never suspect. Until then, please stay safe, stay strong,